Welcome to Conversations With. My name is Shaley Hoogendoorn and I live with bipolar 2 disorder. Sharing with others is healing, both individually and collectively. Sharing our stories will educate others, bring more understanding, shed more light, and smash more stigma. Our voices need to be heard. Our stories aren't over yet. This is bipolar. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to This is Bipolar Conversations With. If you haven't listened before, I am Shaley Hoogendoorn. I'm a wife, a mom, a teacher, a mental health advocate. My pronouns are she, her. I live on the unceded territory of the Coquitlam and Katzie First Nations. And I am super jazzed because I have a new friend named Sarah Jickling. She's going to introduce herself in a minute, but I met her on a YouTube live that we did with Rudy, who you can see his interview a long time ago. But we had some just really great conversation. And then ever since then, I've been listening to like all her music. And now, just so you know, Sarah, I'm now your number one fan. So tell the others. Tell the others me.
Yeah, my name's Sarah Jickling. I'm a musician singer-songwriter who writes about my experiences with bipolar and intergenerational trauma and all that good stuff. And I'm also a mental health advocate. I used to work for the BC Schizophrenia Society, touring around to high schools, educating about psychosis. But unfortunately, that ended with COVID. So now my advocacy is more like online and also just my music. Yeah.
That's amazing. So now I have all questions about that. Okay, we're be ready for a long podcast. But I love that so much. That's kind of something that's like kind of in the back of my head as a dream, because I am an elementary school teacher. So I am a teacher, and I was thinking about how to merge it. But as we talk, I was telling Sarah that I am currently hypomanic. It literally switched a couple days ago. So we are going to be on brand bipolar, and we're just going to do the thing. And I might not be as succinct as normal, but that's okay, because I have promised to show up in the messy middle, and hypomania is messy.
Yes,
it is. I didn't say before, but I live with bipolar 2 disorder. And
same.
Okay. I always forget, because I always think that people are following, but if someone finds the first time, right? I always think of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would love to just dive in. I would love to hear about maybe when you noticed, if or when you noticed something was wrong, or like a little bit leading up to your diagnosis and your diagnosis story, if you would be willing.
For sure. Yeah. So it does all kind of tie into me being a musician. Yeah. So when I always had anxiety, always. And my family, I now know, has a history of bipolar disorder, but there's a lot of like mentally unstable. That's not a nice way to put it, but basically when you're living amongst your family and your family's pretty out there, you're like, this is how life is and this is how people are. Yeah. And then when I graduated from high school to university, so at the end of high school, I decided I'm going to be a singer-songwriter. I joined a band with my best friend. We are writing songs. I was writing about my anxiety. So like right from the beginning, I decided honesty was like my main thing about songwriting. And I was able to say things in songs that I was not able to communicate in words, in conversations. And people right away reached out and said, like, I would put my stuff on MySpace and people were like, whoa, I listened to your stuff. And I feel the same way. So that was really cool. And I used to say that I had offstage fright. So being on stage, I discovered was like really comfortable for me. I think it's kind of a mindfulness exercise, to be honest. Like you're just in the moment, and like I said, if I mess up, it's part of my brand. It's all
Yes.
part of the show. Yeah. So it's just like, yeah, bring it on. And so then I feel like as I as I got got older and graduated from high school, decided that my main thing that I wanted to do was music. Um, things went downhill quite fast. Um, but I started writing so many songs, and so like yes, for the first time, I was having suicidal ideations and making plans. And yes, I was like losing friends, and people were telling me you're crazy, like, and all that stuff. But also, I was writing a lot and having some success. So honestly, I've never had as much success as I had um, when I was like 19 and just totally spiraling and writing a lot. And so you can imagine how that makes it very hard to want to get help.
Yes.
Yeah, and of course I hadn't like so I would I'm 32, so I think yeah, I had to imagine my birthday cake because it was recently, and I was like, what did it say on it? Yeah, anyway, so I'm 32. So when I was 19, like there wasn't a lot of information about bipolar disorder. So the first time that I went to a doctor diagnosed with depression and anxiety, the medication did not help at all. And now I understand why, but at the time I was like, wow, things are worse. And so I went back. I went back when basically I think one of my friends gave me like an ultimatum: if you don't go get help, I'm not going to see you anymore.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I went back, and that's when the first time that I think I was like 20 at that point, that I got diagnosed with bipolar disorder type 2. And they told me, the doctor was like, yeah, Catherine Zeta-Jones has it. And that was basically all the explaining she did. She gave me some Seroquel. She didn't even tell me what the side effects were, and was just like, I'm putting you on a wait list for a psychiatrist. It'll be 8 months, and here you go. No follow-ups, nothing. So I basically went home from that appointment, and I was like, first of all, my number one thing in my brain was, my ex-boyfriend is correct. I am crazy. Like, this is the worst case scenario. And I told my friend who had kind of given me the ultimatum, and she was like, like, you don't seem bipolar. And now I understand that a lot of people don't know what that means, or at least they didn't know what that meant. And including the counselor that I was seeing at the time said, you don't seem bipolar to me. And so I rejected the diagnosis. I never went back to that doctor. I did overdose on that medication though. So like, it wasn't, I would still say, like, the handing out antipsychotics and giving people diagnoses without explaining them is not a great thing to do.
Was that, if you're willing to share, was it on purpose or?
Yeah. So that was like was that my first suicide attempt? I think it was after like a year or so of suicidal ideation, and I was given the medication. It was not given enough to actually succeed. So I basically I overdosed, and like I called the crisis line immediately. It was like, I did something wrong. the crisis line unfortunately was not helpful at all. Which is too bad. They were basically like, how much did you take? And I was like, this much. And they're like, okay, well, you're probably fine. Bye. And so I was just like, convulsing and like just, waiting to see what would happen. I
Yeah.
wasn't sure that I was going to make it through the night. I really didn't know. And,
Yeah.
calling my ex-boyfriend being like, answer, like, what's happening?
And you didn't fall asleep, because literally 1.5, 2, even when I'm out. So you didn't fall asleep.
No. And like, I maybe eventually, but like because I was like, so one of the, this is okay with your audience, right?
Yes,
Okay,
I'll do
cool.
a trigger warning, and I think when
Okay.
people come, they understand that when we're going to talk about this, we're
Okay.
going to dive in, because we think it's really important to talk about.
Mhm.
And I actually think this is really important to talk about, because this is one of the most widely prescribed medication, and I know there's people out there thinking the same thing, so I actually am grateful that you're willing to share.
I mean, and so like I'm on it now, just so you know. Like
Yeah.
later I was put on it properly and I'm on it now, but I did not want to take it ever again, because I felt so horrible on it. And so what I experienced was more of like convulsing and trouble breathing and stuff like that. And my body was trying to live, like I could feel, so I was like fighting the sleep, but eventually I did go to sleep. And
you didn't go to the hospital because you trusted the crisis people.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I was just like, okay, well, they said that I don't have enough, and that I'll be okay. So I guess I'll be okay. And now one of the number one problems with, and then of course, like, and then later talk to people, because that was like within 2 days of the diagnosis. Then later I talked to people. I didn't tell people what I'd done, but I told people this is the diagnosis I got. People were like, seems fake. So, so this is the beginning of the many diagnoses. And so I think I was diagnosed with bipolar like 5 times before I accepted it.
Yeah.
So like from there, I never saw my family doctor again. I moved to Vancouver from Surrey. So I did go to that first psychiatrist, like the 8 months wait list one. He said he found out, because at this point I started going to therapy. I told him, I was abused as a child, like and currently, like I discovered that the way that my family dealt with things is actually abuse, and like it is to do with the fact that I have family members with bipolar disorder or other mental illnesses that are not being treated, and they absolutely didn't mean to do that, but that is what was happening. And so, and like so he was like, I don't think you need to go on anything. I think you should just go to this abuse victim support group. And so at that time, I was still not feeling comfortable calling it abuse. Like I was okay to talk about it because I just started therapy for the first time in my life. But, I was like, I can't go to like a support group with like actual abuse victims. Like, like that seems weird. So that was it. I didn't go back to the doctor for quite a while after that. And this is when I started to dive into the world of alternative medicine. So I feel like,
okay, now I'm nervous.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm quite critical of the wellness industry because of what happened next. So, especially because when I was hypomanic, I would write so many songs, and I used to say it was like vomiting up songs. Like I wouldn't even remember writing them, just like blah, here's a song, and they were doing well. and people were like, wow, like this is, I like this. I was getting publicity,
Yeah.
getting
So why would you
opportunities.
change, right?
Yeah,
Why would you change?
exactly. And like I was losing my friends, like my band broke up, but there was a manager who was like, but we will help you because we
Yeah.
think you could be the next Katy Perry, like it was like,
Yeah.
so
And they
people,
think we're fun. Like
yeah,
and because you get so much done. And with
totally.
bipolar 2, hypomania, sometimes in experience, not always,
Mhm.
it's a little bit less impulsive, a little bit, which doesn't make it easier. I get upset when it's like, oh, that's easier. It's just
No.
different. It's just different, but we get more praise because
Mhm.
yes. Okay.
People
Keep
think
going.
people think that you're like super productive and
Yeah.
like uh, you don't you don't sleep, but people are like, oh, you don't seem to need sleep, and like like this kind of stuff. And like, yes, I found that I would get highly irritable, but it wouldn't be. So that's so again, it didn't feel like happy sad to me, which now I understand that's not what bipolar disorder is. But again, like I was I was just sometimes like on fire. Like, I'm on
Yep.
fire. I'm doing so much stuff. I've got so many ideas. I'm gonna write. I'm gonna write the next Harry Potter, but I'm also gonna be the next Katy Perry, and I'm
And I
also
think I'm
gonna be
awesome. That's why we're a little
no,
bit successful because
yeah,
people, not a little bit, you know what I mean? I'm just
no,
trying to sound,
totally,
yeah, so it's like, oh, that's like our thing. And it's like, I have convinced people that I can do things that I have 0%
yeah.
qualifications. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, totally. And like this thing of like other people, especially when you're young, being like if you do have some talent, being like, ooh, that person, like that's kind of the music industry, is people picking people who seem like you could make them money, and taking them. And also I this is when I was also involved in some scams where I was giving people a lot of money because they told me they could make sure that I was famous. So like I have never had as much money since. Because at that time I was able to work like 3 jobs, and like I
Yeah.
was, I was doing so much, but I was giving the money away to
Yeah.
people who said that they could help me get famous.
Oh, yeah.
So it was just really like um mixed messages from everyone. Like I was not really able to have like a solid like people who were my friends would be like, you spend forever like just crying on the floor. But then people who would see me like professionally would be like, wow, she's amazing. Like, wow, like look at all these songs, and look at all this stuff that she's doing. And so it was definitely like I remember like showing up to like one of my last band practices before my band broke up was like I showed up and I lay on the floor. I was like, I just can't. And like they were like, you have to, we don't understand, but it's not, whatever is happening is not good. And also like the fact that my songs were getting the recognition, it created a rift between me and the other songwriters. So it was
Yeah.
just very like,
People don't see that, right? They don't
no.
see our, and then people want to because I've sold everything like candles because I
Mhm.
get it, I get excited
Mhm.
about stuff, but then people see you can make them money, and not that they're all bad,
Yeah.
but they don't see that at our own detriment. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
I interrupted the wellness thing. I want to hear this journey.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I
No,
do. It's interesting. I was like, I kind of nervous to talk about it, but just this week, there's this like, I'm not going to say there, but there's this amazing, like bipolar advocate, or everybody's calling them. And I don't want to offend anybody because I understand, but calling like bipolar coach, and people are like, that's what you are. But I'm just like, to me, that's like hierarchy. And to me, that's kind of dangerous. Like I can tell you my experience, but I'm not like,
no.
and I actually think I could be a bipolar buddy, or maybe I don't even like mentor, but like that kind of
Mhm.
thing. But someone that's respected in our area of bipolar advocates, and like I love her and she's so lovely. And she was treatment resistant. So there is some like supplementy thing, and that's it. But I find that really dangerous because we're not even going to like get help, and there's all the meds, stigma or whatever. And I get that it worked for her, and I don't not believe her experience, and yet it isn't helpful too. So I'm like, how can they share their story? But so this has just happened this week.
Okay.
And then so I read it over, but I said something, and it didn't go over very awesome. So
Well, okay.
I'm like, I want to understand your
Oh,
experience
yes.
with it.
Okay. So I am okay with people, with offending people about this. And this is why.
Okay,
It is extremely dangerous to say that you can treat bipolar with things that not only have not been tested, but things that have been tested and found lacking, because that's something that a lot of people will say, oh, this alternative treatment hasn't been tested. And you got to double check that, because very often people want to find the cure for this stuff. People want to find treatment, but even including scientists, like the thing. So one of the main things that popped up when I was like basically trying to be better without accepting that I had bipolar disorder was all of these different alternative medicine reasons of what could be going wrong. So one of them was like a more like Ayurvedic medicinal approach, completely given to me by white people. And it was like, your doshas aren't balanced, and that's the thing. And so, that this is where orthorexia gets in. So I basically like became obsessed with what I was eating, because I thought the reason that I had all these problems was because I was not good at eating the correct thing. And if I could just eat the right thing, it would all go away. And so often people who have, and like I tried so many different things, like supplements as well. So often people who are selling these things are not saying like, hey, this is like a little helper for you, but your journey's still going to be hard. They're selling you cures. They're like, there is no bipolar. This is a general statement, but this is what I've discovered, what I found in the wellness industry. People say there's no bipolar. The sort of like big pharma is trying to sell you the idea that you have an illness that you need fixed, and you don't need it fixed. You just need to do XYZ thing that I am selling, or even a thing I'm not selling, but that I'm very invested in. And so this was such a huge thing, because I didn't want to say that that I had bipolar, and the reason why I was writing all these songs was bipolar, and like, that I actually needed to go on those horrible meds that made me overdose, and so I really wanted to stay away from that. So I was really attracted to people who were saying there's no such thing as bipolar disorder. I don't think it's real. I think you just need to, it's actually about a vitamin deficiency. It's actually about a mindfulness thing. It's actually about a whatever, and basically selling me on the idea that I could have a totally normal life if I just did XYZ. And the thing that I've discovered since is that bipolar disorder is a fatal illness. There's like 25% of people who do not get treated kill themselves. That's a statistic that I read a while ago, so I should check up on it. But it's still like, when I read that, I was high.
I think you're right, or it's very in that ballpark. Yeah.
And so like I kind of realizing that I have an illness, and I do like to call it a mental illness. Like, it's not like, I don't like to say I have my bipolar is my superpower. Like, for me, this is an illness that caused me to attempt suicide multiple times. I definitely could have died. It caused me to lose many friends. It caused me to lose it caused abuse in my family, like family members who did not get treatment abused their children, it is destructive. And yes, sometimes during hypomania you can create things easier, and it's there's more of a flow state there. It's similar. I've spoken to like drug users in the past, like people who are trying to learn how to live without drugs, and their stories are very similar of like how they felt when they were on drugs. Our brains are kind of just like giving us drugs.
Yeah, it lights up, and I've seen
Yeah.
that lights up in similar areas. Again, we're not medical professionals, but
I know.
these are our experience.
Yeah.
And I love that you're going there. Sometimes, like, depending on what state I'm in, not right now, but when I'm depressed or pre-medication, I would be scared to say the hard things because I wanted, we're programmed to look for the silver lining, and we can flourish, and all of those things
Yes.
give hope. But also, I wasn't finding anybody, when you don't talk about the harsh realities, then it makes people feel alone, because I was like, oh, well,
Yeah.
they're okay with it. And it's like tricky because I say we're not all this, like we're not a monolith, we're not all this, and yet there is truth to some stereotypes. And in your experience, untreated meant this. It doesn't mean all people. What it does mean is that it needs to be treated, right? There's like the both and that I struggle with posting about. So I love what you're saying. And same with, those things are good. Like, we're not like, don't do yoga, don't take omega-3s, but they're not, it's a chronic, it is incurable illness. And if you're offering this when like, I don't even know the percentages of people that the medicine works for, or figuring out, if you're offering that you're stopping someone from getting the help they need. And I know it's going to be hard to hear for some people, and don't come at me, but this is where we're at.
Well, so I was 100% like in that wellness world. Like, I was like, you're right, bipolar doesn't exist. I was that far in, like,
wow,
not real, big pharma, the whole thing.
Yeah.
I just need to do this, take this, attend this.
And it's our fault. It's our fault that we're not doing.
It becomes very victim blaming.
Yes.
So like, once you're in this place where you're like, well, okay, I can't say that I have bipolar disorder, because that would then admit that like something's wrong with me, and maybe also the thing that people think is really amazing about me, the fact that I can write these songs, maybe that's also like a symptom of the illness. Now, I don't think that. So we'll get to that later. I don't think
tell me that. That's what we want to talk about.
Yeah, I don't think that, but that was 100% the vibe that people were giving me, and like that was the belief.
Yeah.
And it would, and like it does make it, I will say, it does make it easier to create. And there's a reason why I went to a songwriter workshop, and literally one of the groups that I was in, the successful singer went up and was like, I drink and then I write. Like, it is not just bipolar people who sometimes rely on like things to like loosen them up, or like, change the state that they're in to create. And so there's that, but I basically like, so especially in Canada, when you do have a lot of the treatment at like the hospital and stuff is free, I spent so much money on the alternative treatments, so much money. And these people were very often promising me cures.
Yeah.
So that is like huge. And there's this distrust of the medical system was like, I remember one friend being like, oh, there's this guy who makes these bipolar like supplements. So, I would go off and on when I decided that I had this versus I didn't have it and I didn't need anything. But if I did have it, maybe it's just vitamins that you need. And she said he's banned in Canada. And like that's a good thing. Wow, he's not even allowed to sell things in Canada. Like that was seen as a good thing because like the medical establishment is bad, and either they're lying that bipolar exists or they're lying that you need this to treat it
Yeah.
or whatever, and they want to keep you on the medication forever. Like they're saying there's no cure because they want you in their little pockets. And so I feel like, I mean, so in the wellness world, I ran into some people who were like, hey, you know what? I think you need to go get some help professionally, and then you can come back and do this stuff.
Yeah.
Those people, like, I 100% believe that I could have joined a cult, because I definitely walked into places willing to spend any amount of money, willing to sign anything if people.
Yeah, we're desperate. We're desperate.
Yeah.
And we're actually shown as like violent and this and that, but really we're very vulnerable because you are desperate to get help. And I don't think people talk about that enough. Yeah.
It would like such a like, a cult risk is what one therapist called me. I'm a cult risk because I was just, I literally was like looking for communes to move into because like I couldn't find anyone who would stay my friend. Like it was like, it was so difficult to live life that I was actively looking to join a cult, like to the point where I was like, I would like to find a cult because I was like, I would like this, like support and like I'm fine.
Right?
Like I'm fine with that. And like I do believe that if I, that if like Scientology or something had like popped up at that time, like I would have been there. And the fact that, so I did, one thing that I did do was transcendental meditation. And so some people do consider that a cult, but the person who taught it to me was actually really lovely. She gave me a discount on her sessions, and she also, so I would get these emails from the transcendental meditation sort of main organization being like, you can get your level 1 and your level 2 and you can go on these retreats. And I would be like, hi, I want to do all this, and she'd be like, no, like just focus on this one thing and maybe go to the doctor. And so I was just really lucky that the like cult in quotation marks, because I don't know that it is a cult, I don't think so, but that kind of like the place where I gave a bunch of money and signed a document to.
What do they call it? They call it like high pressure, like highly controlled or high pressure, because it can happen in religion and other things. I know there's like a name.
Yeah, that kind of thing. I was lucky that the person who I was in contact with was like aware that I was unwell and aware that I didn't have money and was actively helping me. So that was amazing. But, I would go, I kind of started this sort of, I have rapid cycling, bipolar. So I think that was also like another sort of tricky thing, was because I couldn't stay in one state long enough to like feel like I was there. Like, so I would be depressed. I would actually make doctor's appointments. I would go to the walk-in clinics. I would, so because I didn't have a family doctor, I'd go to walk-in clinics, and they would be, and I would be like, I'm so depressed and I would actually really like help. And they would put me on a wait list to see a psychiatrist. And then I would be like, whoop, back up to hypomania. I did not spend very much time in, can you remind me what it's called?
Tricky. That is tricky because they don't talk about that a lot. You have to be one or the other. So you didn't even realize.
No, so I was just, so then like, and I feel like I had like emotional amnesia where if I was in one state, I couldn't remember what it felt like to be in the other state.
Same.
You
don't remember how bad it is.
No. And so, like when I would go back up to hypomania, I would phone up the psychiatrist and cancel get off the wait list. Then I would go back down, go back to the walk-in clinic, get on another wait list. This happened, like, this was like 5 years of this. And then like in between, I was still trying the different wellness industry, like alternative medicine.
No meds at all. No meds. You're still just.
I would kind of sometimes when I would go to the walk-in clinic, they'd give me some antidepressants.
Okay. Yep. Dangerous.
Danger. Yeah.
For a little while.
So I take it for a little while, and it would make my symptoms worse. And and then I would I would go off of them. So that I was occasionally adding them in. That was adding to my idea that psychiatric medication is bad, because every time I went on it would make things worse. It was not working. Side effects were horrible, like all this stuff. So it was continuing to add to that, like, fear of treatment. And so the thing that really changed for me, so there was a couple of moments of acceptance.
Hey everyone, as you know, I've done a collaboration with Flourish Stoneware. My friend Laura made these semicolon earrings starting on World Mental Health Day. And we know that the semicolon represents in a sentence that the author is not finished. And so in the mental health community and people that have struggled with mental illness and or suicide ideation, thoughts or attempts, that it means our story isn't over yet and your story isn't over yet. These earrings are still available at flourishstoneware.com. I am wearing the latest color from the spring collection, which is a blush. And these are the large ones. They're small ones. And there's even a really cool, like, seafoam marbled one that you can get. So go to flourishstoneware.com. Also know that partial proceeds goes to jack.org, which is an organization in Canada that raises the voices of youth and mental health awareness. So if you buy them, I'd love to see pictures. Tag us, tag at this.is.bipolar and at Flourish Stoneware, because we would love to see you wear them. Back to the show.
One of them was I was at Chapters, the bookstore, and I was looking through, because I kind of was like, okay, I do experience depression sometimes. Like that was like getting to be a more acceptable kind of thing to say.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, sometimes I experience this, and I picked up this book that was called "Why Am I Still Depressed?" Have you tried everything and you're still depressed? Yeah. And I opened it, and it was like, this book is about bipolar disorder type 2, and I was like, oh my God.
We have to tag that below if it's good.
Yeah, I think it is. Like I haven't read it in a while, but that book was one of the things that made me get the treatment, because they also do talk about like different kinds of treatment, like light therapy treatment, and like they really go into a lot about how to treat type 2 specifically. And they go into great detail about all the different medications, at least that were available at the time, and the pros and the cons. And like, it was an amazing book. But I was like, I just felt like, oh my God, okay, I get it, universe, whatever. Like, I'm just constantly being bombarded with, you have bipolar, and I'm constantly being like, no, I don't.
Yeah.
And then another thing was, I just got really into like listening to stand-up comedy and stuff. And the comedian Maria Bamford, she has bipolar disorder type 2. She says it out loud in one of her stand-up specials.
Wow.
And like hearing her say it on stage, and she's not like a crazy person from a movie. She's like, and she's and because she like makes, stand-up specials and stuff, like I felt like I knew her more than I knew Catherine Zeta-Jones, right? Like I knew her, and she said it out loud, and then and I was like, okay, well maybe like if she has it, I could also have it. And then later, my friend sent me an interview with her after she had been hospitalized, and like she did this, and she took a break from stand-up, and then she came back and she did this amazing interview. I'll send you the link. And she talked about how difficult it was to go on medication, but how, and like all the different stuff, but how like she stuck with it, and now it's okay, and now she can do stuff. And she's like, and she was like, some of the medication made me forget how to talk, and some of the medication made me lose a lot of weight, and some of it, and she was like, I was really worried about taking this one kind because it was going to make me gain weight, and I work in Hollywood. But then finally I took it, and it didn't even make me gain weight. Not that that's, whatever, but it worked. And and like, I was listening to this, made me be like, okay, you know what, maybe I will actually go see a psychiatrist. So again, put myself on another wait list. The thing that ended up really like pushing me to get proper help was, I think, unfortunately, another, like I was like another suicide attempt, like getting really close at least to another suicide attempt. And I had gone home for Christmas, so my parents were like watching me and being like, what the heck is going on? And so on Boxing Day, my mom took me to the walking clinic that I've been going to, like, kept going to, being like, hi, please put me on a wait list. And I'm like, once again, please put me on a wait list. I was already on a wait list. And the doctor said, you know what, like, you have to go to the emergency room.
Yep.
And she's like, and don't leave. Like, even if they make you feel like you shouldn't be there, just don't leave, because feeling suicidal is an emergency, and don't leave until they give you a psychiatrist. So
that's Canada. There's no in between. We can't wait 9 months. And so a lot of people are like, oh, it's free, it's this, but sometimes but it's terrible in terms of psychiatrists or whatever. And people are so afraid to go to emergency because
it's awful as well.
Yeah, it's
a terrible experience.
Yeah, I had an okay experience, but it is. But yet, what's the alternative, right? People are, you're so scared, but yet, and sometimes you have to go to the psych ward to get the help, because I would rather you be here.
Yeah.
Right. So anyways,
that's the thing is, like, so I did end up going to, so I wasn't hospitalized. I just stayed in emergency for like 24 hours. Took that long to, like, for them to get a psychiatrist to me. And they said, okay, so they gave me some antidepressants, and so it was like, but they were like, in 2 weeks, you will see a psychiatrist. Your psychiatrist will give you a psychiatric analysis, literally 1 hour. And then after, so I don't even know if I actually took those antidepressants. I was just like, just get me the actual psychiatrist. That psychiatrist was the person I should have seen 6 years ago, because she was like, doing this whole conversation and being like, okay, well, I'll see you next week. And have you ever heard of bipolar disorder? Here's a handout. And like, so gentle, like being like, like, maybe, like, let me suggest this word to you. I know it's scary. And I'm like, nope, it's been 5 years or 6 years. And I know that I have bipolar now. Like, just the fact that you are like being so gentle and like so worried that I'm going to be scared by this word, like I was at first, and now I'm like, okay, fine, give it to me. And even
you're desperate.
And at this point, she said, some people feel that their creativity goes away when they take the medication. Are you okay with that? Which I don't know how I feel about her having said that, but I remember I said, I don't care if I ever write a song again. So like, I was just like, I don't need to be a musician. I just need to be alive. Like, I was like, I just feel horrible.
Yeah.
So I know that at that point, like, I did not care if I ever created anything ever again. And so anytime that I felt after that on my medication journey that really began there, anytime after that I felt like, oh, I'm not creating, I would remember that I said that to that doctor.
Wow.
And so the medication, and like, unfortunately, that doctor, like, got pregnant. I was given to another psychiatrist who was horrible. And,
Oh,
like the medication journey for getting my right medication took years, and there were more overdoses and there were more suicide attempts. And like every time I was in the emergency room, so like I had worse experiences in the emergency room, being taken away by the police, and being taken, the Mental Health Act, being taken against your will to the hospital and stuff like that, while I was trying to, get on this medication and also like live my life, but also like in this world that's like really not set up for that, because I had to like quit, I couldn't work while I was, at least in the beginning, while I was on the medication, because it was making me sleep like 16 hours a day, and just all this weird stuff. And yeah, the lithium made my liver stop working, or kidneys stop working, and like all this, it's going on and off, all this stuff. And like at some point then they started bringing up borderline, and getting kind of pushed towards that direction. And I'm like, oh, do I not have bipolar disorder? Do I have borderline? And then things being brought back, and like me going on,
so confusing.
went on like a 2-year wait list to see a psychologist who said, you don't have borderline. Like, I was like, okay, cool.
And just, it doesn't happen to everyone. Don't be too afraid of lithium. It's her experience.
Oh yeah. No. Yeah, that's, and like I wish that lithium had worked for me. That would be great. It just happens to some people, and it was definitely not the worst one. And like the whole, especially because I also do have anxiety, so I am on antidepressants now, but they first had to put me on the mood stabilizers and get that solid. Then they could add the antidepressants and the benzos and shit to kind of like balance out the anxiety. And because my anxiety is quite bad, and I have always had it, and I've always had panic attacks like since I was a small child. So like that, having those conflicting things was also part of what made the medication journey so long. But also like one of the clinics I went to got shut down. I was moved to another one. Like I think that, like, I sometimes when I talk about like how long it took me and all the different things that happened, like people seem like scared to go have this happen. But like, first of all, like I didn't have very much support. So like having once I found, so later, like 2-3 psychiatrists later, because one got pregnant and then the other clinic shut down, and finally I found this amazing psychiatrist, and he was like, wow, the medication they put you on is for bipolar type 1. That's why you sleep 16 hours a day. Let's put you on something else. And like once you find a good psychiatrist, and like if you don't have one, complain, squeaky wheel, like just like demand a different one if you can, like, or like argue with your psychiatrist, have somebody come with you, because like you unfortunately do need to fight for some of this stuff, be your own advocate or get an advocate for you, because now I know that that's also a thing.
And they can see things that you can't. Like with my husband, it was like, it just, to me now, it seems bizarre that you're telling all the experience, and yet your illness, your brain lies to you. Like find someone.
And I had my one friend who like had literally stuck with me since high school. Wow. Like she stuck through all of it. She was like, I remember the day that, so the first psychiatrist hadn't told me that she'd written down like cluster B personality, which is like hard borderline, cluster B personality traits in my chart. She got pregnant. The next doctor was like, so I see it says cluster B personality traits. I'm like, I don't know what that is. And she's like, okay. So like, I remember the day that happened, and I like left the doctor crying, and called my friend, and she was like, like we know you have bipolar disorder, like whatever else this is, maybe you have it as well, but like it's not like, we know you've gotten here, you have it, like. And so it is kind of important to have other people, like, especially if you're being passed around from doctor to doctor. But eventually I found a really good one, and he was younger, and I do think like, like I think it's getting better. like, I think that like there's more and more research and it's getting better, but and the medication is very, it's not great. Like but I don't cycle anymore. I haven't had any suicide attempts since I got kind of good balance on my medication. Like it does have it does it does something, and it doesn't cure you. And the fact that the doctors are like, this won't cure you, and you are going to have to do exercise, and you are going to have to do all this other stuff on top of it, and that's not going to cure you either. Like that's the kind of advice that you need. You need somebody being like, this is hard, it's going to keep being hard. And I think like one doctor once told me, she's like, you're trying all this stuff, like your vegetables and whatever supplements, it's like you're trying to build a sandcastle like without a foundation, and then like every time the wave comes, everything is gone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so good, because you're right. And literally, okay, so I'm an advocate. I was diagnosed very late, 32. I don't know, numbers are hard, but it just in the past like 3 or 4 years, I've claimed the word incurable, because my internalized stigma, because you can't see anything, and we think it's going to take everything away, so you give up. And if we had like an other illness like cancer or something you could see on the outside, you would take the medicine despite the side effects.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. I don't know why that, I know why, because of the stigma and all of those things, but I think that that's so important to understand. And like you said, like my medicine brings me to a space that I can actually do the other healthy things.
Yeah, totally. And like the people who like, so literally when I post about my medication on Instagram, I will get people being like, look, she works for the Rockefellers, like she's under the influence of George Soros, like there's conspiracy theory stuff that's so strong. And like, oh, like, so like one of the comments was like, well, you can tell by her sad, dead eyes that she's like a Prozac robot or something. And I'm like, this is the world we live in right now. So of course, if you are afraid of medication, no kidding, like that makes a lot of sense. And also because I'll like to say, like, we are like, psychiatric medication is kind of still in the dark ages, because for so long we just like locked people up who were mentally ill as well. We didn't actually we don't understand the brain the same way we understand the rest of the body.
And the studies are a lot on bipolar 1, and as we know with all medical things, on dudes.
Yeah. So like, I'm just like, it's gonna get even better than it is now.
Yes.
But people who say, oh, there's like a lot of people don't understand studies, they don't understand placebo, they don't understand a lot of things, and then they kind of listen to these conspiracy theories, and like, I don't think, maybe there are some doctors who are who are working for a company, and they really want the answer to be the medication, but I know there are researchers who just want to find the answer. And like, there's no way that and this is something that some people say, there's no way that every single psychiatrist is somehow like on the payroll for the, like that.
They all got together.
Yeah, there's too many.
They're gonna trick us.
Yeah, there's too many. Like, there's just too many people involved for that level of conspiracy. And like, yeah,
and
so
might be it makes a lot of sense too if it's someone with them. It gets so tricky, because I've believed not so much conspiracies, but I've believed things to be true that aren't entirely true. And I haven't experienced like true psychosis, but when I ended up going to the hospital and getting the help, it says in my file that I was on my way. I don't know if they can say that, but I started to think like I was this major matchmaker, or we're very vulnerable to conspiracies as well. So it's like,
Yeah. And if you have type 1, you're like, and if you're experiencing psychosis, paranoia is a symptom.
Yes,
So like,
symptom, like bleeding
yeah.
or this or that. So people, it's to be unkind is, do you know what I mean? Is so
It's
terrible. Because
it's
I
like,
was like, if I'm
yeah.
bleeding, you're gonna have empathy for me. But if I am irritable and being mean and talking about things that are clearly not logical, I don't get the
Mhm.
same empathy or care.
Yeah. And so like I think that it's important that people understand what psychosis is. It's important that people understand what all of this stuff is. And I do think, no, there's not a giant conspiracy of a bunch of people just trying to make money and literally like, and I've lost friends over this
Oh,
opinion. Like I don't, like to me, it's more important that I take my medication and I don't have anyone in my life who literally thinks I'm making myself sick by
yeah.
taking my
And you are
medication.
alive. Like, I don't think
Yeah.
people understand how, and I'm not trying to scare people, right? Like, I'm
No.
not trying to scare people, but also be honest, especially if you're listening. I know we have a lot of listeners that love someone with bipolar or concerned or
Mhm.
that it's just so dangerous. And I don't think everybody's mean. Like, I don't think they're doing it to be mean. It's just
No.
misinformation. And that's what, and not like, even I've had someone say like, oh, I don't need to listen to your podcast, I don't have bipolar. I'm like, there's like, I forget the percentages. You probably know someone. It
You
isn't us.
Yeah,
Learning
you
isn't just
probably
for
know
us.
someone. Yes.
Yeah, it's our job for everyone to start
Yeah.
learning. And I do have a podcast that several podcasts that we talked about what not, things that are not to say things, ways
Yeah.
you can help from our standpoint, because it's like for mental illness, not bipolar, but it's 1 in 4. That is a
Mhm.
lot of people, and we're
Yeah.
hiding it and we're being discriminated against. And I just want yeah, it's the both and, right? This is going to be hard. Meds are going to be hard. This is going to be hard. And you're alive and you deserve help and you
Mhm.
deserve to feel better. And like you said, like not all psychiatrists, there are bad psychiatrists, just like
Yeah.
there's bad everything, but
There's bad
doesn't
everything.
mean it's for the whole. It's like as humanity, we want to like put it in boxes, right?
Mhm.
Like even as a person that lives with bipolar isn't the same,
Yeah.
and yet we have similar things. And I remember reading something where it said that I thought was really interesting, because some illnesses are different in different countries or different,
Mhm. Mhm.
different places, but bipolar is like universal in that it's the same everywhere culturally, but like the symptoms.
Like it, and like it's when you do see somebody experiencing, like whenever I talk to somebody who has like a relative who has bipolar, I'll be like, oh yeah, like I recognize this, and like it's also apparently I've helped some people because like they see their person like not getting help, and they're like, oh, but like I know that you can get help and that you can change, and if it gives people hope, that's great. Or if it gives people the like permission to be like, hey, I have to take a step away, but I know that you can get help, and I know, and like there's so many different reasons to educate yourself about this stuff. But like it also is just, it is really confusing, and it is, I think, so there's, I do think that because yes, just being alive is like a reason to get help, and there's so many of us. I totally forgot what I was saying. Anyways, continue.
No, on brand, on
Yeah,
brand.
I was like I had a thing about
No, I'm thinking
medication.
1,000 things right now. And then my anxiety is like, people are going to be mad at us. Blah, 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 blah. But I'm also like, no, this is, yeah, this is the way it is. And also, I just want to say, like, I'm sorry all that happened to you. Like, my heart hurts that all of those things are happening. And it's just this whole realization to me that there's the both and. Like, I thought when I
Hmm.
had to start talking about bipolar, I had to be this or that, right? Like I had to
Hmm.
be bipolar is my superpower, and or it's doom and gloom, but it's well, the superpower thing, it isn't both.
So
But
yeah.
I'm not, if you ask me if I could, like, if you could give it away, could you? 100% yes.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
like we spoke about, the horrible things are not, don't outweigh.
No.
And I think we're so afraid of, because it's hard to pull your personality away from your disorder. I think we're so afraid that
Yes.
we won't be who we are, but I am a better version of myself. And with the hypomania, yes, we get the creative and the ideas, but sometimes they're unfinished ideas. Sometimes they're, you know what I mean? Like I find, and just because you have that energy, I've learned, you don't have to use it for something, right? And I
Yeah.
have wanted to like change the podcast and do this and do that or whatever, but I have chosen, because I'm medicated and I can focus on the one thing and have a big yes to one thing instead of all the others. And that what we think is complete amazingness and creativity isn't worth the other thing. And half the time you crash and burn and can't keep that up.
No. Yeah, you can't keep it up. Like
You just can't.
I remember when I was like, okay, well, I'm talking about how I'm like, okay, yeah, I maybe have accepted that maybe I have some things going on with my brain, but like I had a tour planned and I had to cancel the entire thing. And I was even like, at that point, I was even like being like, maybe I should be a mental health advocate, like, but not for bipolar, for depression, because I don't have bipolar. And like, I had to cancel the entire tour. Like, so, and like when I was really successful, like if I had not had bipolar disorder, maybe I would have actually been able to continue and show up and not lose my band and give all my money away to a con man and like all this stuff. And so I completely agree that so this is a thing that I had to go through, which was to decide to realize that I was writing stories and songs when I was like 4. Like I've been creative my whole life.
Yes.
It did not start when I started experiencing bipolar disorder. It makes it easier because it shuts off your critical voice. Yes. Your critical voice is it's so strong, the imposter syndrome that like, but like, like I remember when I briefly did some music school and I had this like, I had like the literal version of my critical voice was this composition teacher who would be like literally like crossing his arms and being like, I would be like, here's my song. And he'd be like, I've heard it before, make it more interesting, make it better. Why do you this sounds like Halloween? That's when he said, I was like, that sounds like Halloween. But like, so like, just like, and like that's inside of everybody's brain. And so we have to learn how to like write in spite of that. And if you can figure out how to get into a flow state, like that's cool too. Like, and like the problem is that it's 100% easier to create when you are experiencing some of this stuff. It is just easier. Yeah. That doesn't mean the work you make is better, but you're going to make a lot of work. So you might have some good stuff. But like not everybody who has bipolar disorder is an amazing artist either. Like that was something that helped me. I have my lovely friend who I was doing my podcast with, who was like, I work in HR. like I don't even do, I don't do that
totally.
Stuff. Yeah.
There's like stereotype, right? And too, like you might get praised at your job because you do way more than someone else, but inevitably, like it's in various degrees, but there's some kind of crash or some kind of this. So I'll do all the things and then I get the depression and then I question all those things or cancel them. Do you know how many times I've almost pulled down the entire podcast? Like I'm talking every couple months and I'm not just because of that internal voice. Yeah. And there will be, I know I'm putting it out before this podcast, but I talked to someone that actually has written a book called Say It Out Loud. And it talks about actually saying your negative voice outside, because you don't realize how horrible it is until you say it outside and talk back to it. Because I would never say these things to a friend, even when I get mean and irritable. No. Right?
Yeah.
And the hypomania, I've learned once you get the coping skills and do that, I am able depending, because there's a stability, and I still do get hypomania, but it's so muted as before. I'm able to take that some days and use it because I know you know what I mean? Like I know I'm hypomanic right now. So I booked more interviews than when I was depressed, but I didn't go like every day, right? Just because, but you learn that. And also my biggest thing that I did is I wrote letters to myself in the other state.
Oh, yes.
So that I reread it, like, do not think, because I have complete sympathy for people that go off their meds and people are like, oh, they're dumb, or why wouldn't they help themselves? Is because depression is so horrible that you want that. Like, I think of it all the time. Like, oh, if I just weaned off a little, if I just took more of this. But I have to remind, like I have letters, I have people, I have this, because you forget. So don't be mad at your people, help them.
Yeah. And like, I totally feel that, so I like literally have never experienced hypomania again since I started Sarah, which was a long time ago. And I miss it sometimes so much. Like, because of course I don't remember the bad parts, but
you remember the feeling.
Yeah, but then I do have, so I've occasionally found some journals, which was never able to like consistently write a journal because I haven't really, it's hard to consistently do anything, but occasionally, I would write stuff down when I was in hypomania, and like I'll occasionally find it and be like, whoa. So like, like I was like, oh, in this like unmedicated hypomania, I was like, when every step I take, like I feel like maybe I could fly, and like, just like I feel so light that I today I ran on the treadmill for 2 hours and it felt like nothing, and then like I haven't eaten anything today and I'm so proud of myself, and then like it gets you can kind of see it, and like being like I have this idea, and like literally like I've done interviews where I've said really crazy stuff, like, so if you do have it like written down somewhere, you can look back and be like, oh yeah, no, I don't want that. Even though there were moments where it felt really nice, and I've never felt that like light and excited.
I know, I always say stuff. If you could bottle up the good parts, but then I forget that then my family suffers. I have all this good ideas and I look all this on the internet or whatever, but I have to remind people that like not so much my kid, well, they probably say that, but like my husband, like I can get me. It's not me. I can get mean, right?
Yeah.
And the irritability, and especially as a woman, like I was so embarrassed, and I'm like, that's not me. I'm like kind, but it's literally unmedicated. It was impossibly hard to be kind sometimes.
And you have to I know like friends, they have to pick up the phone and be like, which version of this person am I going to get? And I am also excited about your novel that you're writing, that I know in 2 weeks you're not going to write, or like, and so, something you said reminded me what I forgot about the last time.
Good.
Okay. This is what it is. It's that the reason why I take medication, even though like that crazy journey of like just everything being so difficult. I have family members who are not being treated. I see what it does to them, and and like I see what it did to me as a child growing up in situations like that, and like I can't do that to other people, and like I can't, and also like I don't want to live like that. And so when you have an example of what it looks like if somebody doesn't get treatment, and like exactly like you were just saying, the strain on other people around them, it's just not it's not,
I don't want to be alone. I don't want to be alone. And it's not, sometimes I know we're supposed to do things for ourselves or whatever, but sometimes I follow through with things that my brain's telling me, like, it would be better if you stop this for others, because I love them so much. And I know that you're not supposed to say that, you're just supposed to do it for yourself. But like when I'm depressed, I don't like myself. So it's very hard to want to do that for myself.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm going to have you on the podcast again because I have like another hour's worth of questions.
Yeah.
But I wanted to I wanted to tell people, I know I've been saying this for like 6 months and it will happen, but I'm going to be starting my membership very soon. And so I will be going deeper with Sarah. So we're going to record another thing. I wanted to ask her about her coping mechanisms and a few other things. So if this is amazing to you and you love this podcast or it has touched you in any way, you can join. The one thing I can tell you is that I've decided it's $10 and there's a lot of things going to be offered. So
Wow.
just to support what I'm doing, because yeah, it's hard to say, but it's a lot of work and I love it. So anyways, that's the really uncomfortable. I'm not good at promoting. I can promote anybody else, but myself, hard. But yeah,
$10. That's nothing. I think that's an
a little
awesome.
bit more than a Starbucks, and it's
Oh yeah.
Canadian, so it'll be cheaper for
Oh
US.
yeah.
Because
Yeah,
I want to
yeah.
start small and the things I can offer, because a part of me wants to be like, I can offer all this, but I want to be sustainable. So I'm trying to
Yeah.
be smart. And so it's taken me a while, because usually I would put this together, like, you know what I mean? I'm trying
Yeah.
to be careful that way. Anyways, that's aside, but because I want you to hear what Sarah and I are going to talk about next. So Sarah, this
Yeah.
I've been struggling with the fact that I'm even back in hypomania, and I have been struggling because even now I've been watching what I was talking about earlier, and I went to my husband and like, maybe I'm totally wrong. Maybe I just need micronutrients or whatever.
Hmm.
Uh, uh, and I love that you reminded me that no, they might help me. And maybe maybe there are a few people out there.
Yes.
I'm not going
Yeah.
to take away from someone's story.
No. Yeah.
However, just despite studies and things, like, you reminded me that even though the both end, it needs to be done. You have to go and get help.
Th-
You
there
have
are
to.
people out there who, like, if someone is like, literally, I am treating my thing with this, cool, amazing, like, uh, great. But the majority of people, it's like how some people that, like, say like diets really worked for them and they lost a bunch of weight, cool, but the majority of people cannot, like, do that. The majority of people have to do this other thing. So definitely, like, if you are trying the thing that this one person says is amazing and it's not working for you, don't blame yourself. It's
Yeah.
you.
And
Yeah.
do the doctor stuff like first.
First,
You
and
know
know
what I
that
mean?
there's so much more, like if you're excited about this, whatever nutrient or this practice or whatever, like, you can still do it.
Yeah.
But my number one thing that I will say is, if they tell you they can cure you, they are lying.
Yeah.
And I have
It can take away some symptoms, but yeah, the words cure or
yeah.
healed, or they trigger me to no end, because guess what?
No.
That was also used against me. And maybe that was in my head, but also outside to make me feel like there was even more wrong with me as
Oh,
a person,
yes.
because we like to tell those bow stories, and half the time they're not entirely true.
Yeah. You're not broken. You don't need to be fixed. You just need support. And I do have a podcast called
Yes.
Get Well Sooner that's specifically about the wellness industry and this stuff. I decided I need to. It is a sticky topic, and like, if anybody wants to chat with me about this and you feel strongly about anything like this, I would love to chat with you, because it definitely stopped me from getting help for a long time. So I would like to just speak out about my experience and like just the straight up facts as well. And so it's called Get Well Sooner. It's
I'll put all the
skeptical
stuff.
skeptical look at the wellness industry from a mental illness point of view.
Yeah. And I'm really sorry if we hurt your feelings or anything like that, and you can still tell your story too. Just please, it really does, like, not just be dangerous. Like, this is life and death we're talking about here. So
yes.
Yeah. Well, Sarah, thank you for being my new best friend and
Yay!
letting me be your number one fan. But I am so grateful for what I'm just starting to see what you're putting out in the world. And I am really, I'm really just so grateful that I got to meet you, and thank you for coming on the podcast and just sharing the, the raw and the hard things, because sometimes I feel alone in that. And sometimes I feel like, I know I'm anti-toxic positivity, but, and so I'm just really, really grateful for you.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I appreciate you so much. And yeah, when we were chatting on the live, I was like, we have to talk more.
Yes, 100%.
We have so many more. Also, we live in the same
I know
area. Isn't that crazy?
I know. I'm very, very excited. And I saw on your website that you do nails. So
yeah.
I'll put that in there for our Lower Mainland.
Yes, I do nails. I teach voice. I teach aerial arts. If you like to learn,
you do all the things.
Silks from me.
I love it. But now that we are medicated, we can do those things consistently and well. And so go follow Sarah, listen to her music. I was listening to it this morning, and I sent one to one of my children. We have some other mental health things in our family, and I think that it will really, the honesty will really, really touch her too. So thank you, everyone. If this is out before the Patreon, hold up. But if it is, the Patreon's already up, then go, because we're gonna do the next conversation right now, and I don't want you to miss it. So this is Bipolar. Thanks again for tuning in. You can find video versions of This is Bipolar on our YouTube channel. We also have all our previous and soon to be future episodes of the podcast on Apple, Podbean, Spotify, and Google Play. We spend most of our time on Instagram at this.is.bipolar. There is a vibrant community there where we have conversations and post different ideas and different strategies, and we'd just love for you to join us there. It is so helpful if you enjoy our work or think it would be helpful to someone if you could like and share and save and follow us in all or any of those spaces. If you're a listener for the podcast, if you could leave a review, we would be forever grateful. Again, thank you for being here with us. Let's get the word out. Let's share lived experiences so that we can change the ideas that people have about bipolar and help those of us that live with it feel less alone. This is Bipolar.